HTML tables. A table is a structured set of data made up of rows and columns. A table in HTML consists of table cells inside rows and columns. A table is a representation of data arranged in rows and columns. Really, it's more like a spreadsheet. In HTML, with the help of tables, you can arrange data like images, text, links, and so on into rows and columns of cells. To create a table in HTML, you will need to use tags. The most important one is the table tag, which is the main container of the table. It shows where the table will begin and where it ends. Table rows. Each table row starts with a tr and ends with a /tr tag. TR stands for table row. You can have as many rows as you like in a table, just make sure that the number of cells are the same in each row. Note, there are times where a row can have less or more cells than another. Table headers. Sometimes you want your cells to be headers, in those cases use the th tag instead of the td tag. By default, the text in th elements are bold and centered, but you can change that with CSS. HTML table tags. Table defines a table. Th defines a header cell in a table. Tr defines a row in a table. Td defines a cell in a table. Caption defines a table caption. Call group specifies a group of one or more columns in a table for formatting. COL specifies column properties for each column within an element. Thiad groups the header content in a table. Tbody groups the body content in a table. Tfoot groups the footer content in a table. HTML table borders. HTML tables can have borders of different styles and shapes. When you add a border to a table, you also add borders around each table cell. To add a border, use the CSS border property on table, th, and td elements. Collapsed table borders. To avoid having double borders like in the previous example, set the CSS border collapse property to collapse. This will make the borders collapse into a single border. Style table borders. If you set a background color of each cell, and give the border a white color, the same as the document background, you get the impression of an invisible border. Round table borders. With the border radius property, the borders get rounded corners. Dotted table borders. With the border style property, you can set the appearance of the border. The following values are allowed: dotted, dashed, solid, double, groove, ridge, inset, outset, none, hidden. Border color. With the border color property, you can set the color of the border. HTML table sizes. HTML tables can have different sizes for each column, row, or the entire table. Use the style attribute with the width or height properties to specify the size of a table, row, or column. HTML table width. To set the width of a table, add the style attribute to the element. Note, using a percentage as the size unit for a width means how wide will this element be compared to its parent element, which in this case is the body element. HTML table column width. To set the size of a specific column, add the style attribute on a th or td element. HTML table row height. To set the height of a specific row, add the style attribute on a table row element. HTML table headers. HTML tables can have headers for each column or row, or for many columns or rows. Table headers are defined with th elements. Each th element represents a table cell. Vertical table headers. To use the first column as table headers, define the first cell in each row as a th element. Align table headers. By default, table headers are bold and centered. To left align the table headers, use the CSS text align property. Header for multiple columns. You can have a header that spans over 2 or more columns. To do this, use the call span attribute on the th element. Table caption. You can add a caption that serves as a heading for the entire table. To add a caption to a table, use the caption tag. Note, the caption tag should be inserted immediately after the table tag. HTML table padding and spacing. HTML tables can adjust the padding inside the cells, and also the space between the cells. To add padding only above the content, use the padding top property. And the other sides with the padding bottom, padding left, and padding right properties. HTML table, cell spacing. Cell spacing is the space between each cell. By default the space is set to 2 pixels. To change the space between table cells, use the CSS border spacing property on the table element. HTML table call span and row span. HTML tables can have cells that spans over multiple rows and or columns. HTML table, call span. To make a cell span over multiple columns, use the call span attribute. Note, the value of the call span attribute represents the number of columns to span. HTML table, row span. To make a cell span over multiple rows, use the row span attribute. Note, the value of the row span attribute represents the number of rows to span. HTML table styling. Use CSS to make your tables look better. HTML table, zebra stripes. If you add a background color on every other table row, you will get a nice zebra stripes effect. To style every other table row element, use the nth child, even, selector like this. Note, if you use odd instead of even, the styling will occur on row 1 3 5 etc. instead of 2 4 6 etc. HTML table, vertical zebra stripes. To make vertical zebra stripes, style every other column, instead of every other row. Set the nth child, even, for table data elements like this. Note, put the nth child, selector on both TH and TD elements if you want to have the styling on both headers and regular table cells. Combine vertical and horizontal zebra stripes. You can combine the styling from the 2 examples above and you will have stripes on every other row and every other column. If you use a transparent color you will get an overlapping effect. Use an RGBA color to specify the transparency of the color. Horizontal dividers. If you specify borders only at the bottom of each table row, you will have a table with horizontal dividers. Add the border bottom property to all TR elements to get horizontal dividers. Hoverable table. Use the hover selector on TR to highlight table rows on mouse over. HTML table call group. The call group element is used to style specific columns of a table. If you want to style the 2 first columns of a table, use the call group and COL elements. The call group element should be used as a container for the column specifications. Each group are specified with a COL element. The span attribute specifies how many columns that gets the style. The style attribute specifies the style to give the columns. Note, the call group tag must be a child of a table element and should be placed before any other table elements, like THEOD, TR, TD etc., but after the caption element, if present. Multiple COL elements. If you want to style more columns with different styles, use more COL elements inside the call group. Empty call groups. If you want to style columns in the middle of a table, insert a empty COL element, with no styles, for the columns before. Hide columns. You can hide columns with the visibility, collapse property. Tables are a great way to represent tabular data, and you can create them using basic HTML elements like table, tr, td. There are many situations where tables might come in handy when developing your projects. You can use tables when you want to compare and contrast data with shared characteristics like the differences between A and B or scores of team X to those of Y. You can also use one if you want to give an overview of numerical data. And a table can help readers quickly find specific information laid out in a clear way.